Welcome back to the channel. I hope you enjoy.
Evelyn honestly didn't know what to think of it. Anything else? I asked. There's not enough to work with here. If only this weren't so vague. After a moment, we continued onward. Making our way through, the temple ceiling didn't look man-made anymore. Rather, we were in a cavern, stalactites hanging above us. Much of the Yucatan's landscape and karst, consisting primarily of limestone bedrock. Hence the reason for the formation of cenotes and caves. In this location, however, the ancient Mayans were apparently able to take advantage of it, building an entire structure into a cenote, and through a network of caves. Soon enough, at the end of the hall, we stumbled into what seemed like a much larger room than the narrow corridor we had come down. Around us were inscriptions, engravings, overall history of which the ancient Mayans had recorded here. Some of them were familiar, as these symbols of Mayan architecture are significant to the culture and mythology of their civilization. But that was only some of it. Many of the carvings in this room weren't typical of what one would find. In fact, I don't recall anything similar to these in any other Mayan structure. Even Sergio, who had dedicated his life's work to this stuff, had known of no other location murals of this variety were to be found. I wasn't used to seeing him so perplexed. From what I can remember, one of them looked like the top half of some giant reptilian creature peering out of the water. A crocodile, perhaps? Only it had what looked like a forked tongue protruding from its mouth, like a snake. Another one featured what looked like a warrior horde confronting some large beast gnashing its jaws. Only the head was visible, but something about it seemed vaguely familiar. The most intriguing example, though, was at the center of the room, with what looked to be some sort of winged creature, with a slender neck and long bill, like some hellish stork. Above it, there was a carving of what looked like a beam of light coming down. You ever seen these before? Evelyn was just as confused as Sergio and I. No, I don't think so. They certainly seem unique. Below the central mural, there was a monolith with several glyphic inscriptions. Perhaps the key to understanding just what this temple's significance was. Immediately, Evelyn got to work on it. It took a couple of minutes to do so given the complexity of Mayan symbols, but once done, she provided us with a proper translation. It said, "Through the gates of Xibalba, 3 gods appear, Kukulkan, Kizin, and Shak. A clash for dominance over the underworld begins. Angered, Eitmane strikes with a bolt of fire, laying waste to all in the realm." Don't think I can recall anything like this having been discussed in old mythos. Evelyn was legitimately puzzled. At first, this confirmed my original idea of this temple being built into a sinkhole as an ancient shrine for religious purposes. At the same time, there were elements that I couldn't quite piece together. How would this function as a shrine? If that's what it was. If this whole place was built for religious practice, it certainly didn't seem like a place accessible to a lot of people, not accommodating for that specific issue. It all felt off to me. Sergio was most interested by this bit of mythology presented to us by Evelyn, only he seemed more suspicious. Algo está mal. These don't seem right. What do you mean? Kukulkan is a serpent, not whatever that is. He was right. Mayan mythology often depicts the god Kukulkan as a winged snake, yet this mural showed some sort of bird-like creature. The other gods allegedly depicted, Kizin and Chak, didn't look much like their mythological depictions either. Perhaps these were some alternative interpretation. If they were, then they were quite far off. As we continued to debate, something caught my eye. The carving of the large creature, apparently Kazin, facing off against the Mayan warriors, had one of the shapes of its teeth missing. Well, not really missing, more so there was an empty shape for one of the teeth. The longest in the top jaw, to be precise. It was nonetheless confusing, but then I remembered something. I reached from my bag and pulled out that stone I found at the entrance to the temple, and when I held it up, it seemed to be the exact size and shape of the hole. Without thinking, I just pressed it in, and it held. Out of nowhere, the lights in our headlamps went out, as did Sergio's torch. What the hell? Evelyn was startled, as we all were, but we couldn't just move around in pitch black. Nobody move. Just try to remain where you are and will. Before I could finish, the entire room started shaking. Now shit had hit the fan. I didn't know what was happening. Was the cave system just suddenly beginning to collapse? None of us could see, and were now struggling to keep our balance. That wasn't all. The outlines of the murals started to glow. In each second they grew brighter. The room started shaking more violently as they did, the force of which threw me back. The last thing I saw was a blinding flash. I don't know how long I was unconscious. When I woke up, though, I remember slowly opening my eyes to an open sky. I was outside. But that was the least confusing part of it. My clothes were covered in sand, which surrounded me. Slowly I ascended to see that I was on the shore of some sort of cove, overlooking the ocean. My colleagues and I were in the middle of the jungle. How the hell did I end up here? Wherever here was. The best guess I could think of was that I was on the Yucatan coast. No, that's completely insane, as the last thing I could remember was being in that underground temple. Before, well, whatever the hell it was that happened. As I stood there trying to comprehend my situation, I'd realized something else. Sergio and Evelyn. There was no sign of them. While I had no rational explanation as to what was going on, they couldn't have been too far from me. At least that's what I'd hoped. As I combed the shore and edge of the jungle that bordered it, I called out for them and looked around for any sign of their presence. I searched for hours to no avail. I started to grow agitated, not having any idea as to my location, and having been separated from my team without evidence to them being nearby. Then again, this led me to another realization. There's no sign of any human presence. At all. Not even human articles or trash was littered across the beach. Even if there was no trash coming from inland, you'd expect some to just wash up on shore from elsewhere, given the unfortunate state of the Atlantic. This all felt abnormal to me, as well as off-putting. After spending around half an hour looking, my attention suddenly shifted to the silhouette of a dark object embedded in the sand, with several birds surrounding it. I went to go to get a better look, and recognized it as Sergio's pack. I rushed to retrieve it, shooing off some of the birds. What I didn't anticipate, though, was the state it was in. The pack, it had been torn apart. There were gash marks straight through it. In addition, hardly anything was left, likely picked off by animals. Just what the hell happened here? Instantly, I worried for Sergio. This told me something had happened, and it certainly wasn't pleasant. That's the end of part 2.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to one of my videos. I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao.